fourth, or fifth floor,
Yeah.
but this is pushing those limits there when you're jumping from the 6th and above.
And if you think about all the people living above it, you know, they're 6th story, it's still pretty low down. You know, if you're way above that on the 19th, 20th floor, you have to make a quick decision whether you're going to run up to the roof or run down, you know, the staircase. But firefighters move so quick. You mentioned more than 300 firefighters heading out there. I mean, they are so good at what they do, our firefighters, because this is a building where I don't know how many people live here, but 25 stories, that's
You're just minimally hundreds.
Yeah.
Right. And we do have Chief Sam back with us. Chief Sam, thank you for joining us once again. Before, when we were first talking, we were kind of receiving some reports, but now we're seeing evidence of what we were talking about earlier. We have just lost Chief Sam, so we'll work to reestablish that in just a second. But again, you're looking at video up top on the left. That is live video from News Chopper 4 Alpha. And I believe it is showing you some of these rescues that are ongoing here. And then on the right is this fire that was burning so intensely about an hour ago. Again, the Sawtelle area. And again, it looks like that they do have the flames under control for the time being.
Which is a good thing. They have to keep an eye on hot spots and all the smoke damage as well. It's likely that many of these residents will not be able to enter this building for a while because of all the smoke damage. And the biggest concern for firefighters is all the combustible stuff that's inside the building. You have furniture, things that will catch fire, quickly spread, and then you're dealing with the wind today. We've been told that the wind is pretty intense, one of the windiest days this week, so those flames and the embers, you know, those fly as well, so that's something firefighters are dealing with, and then having that helicopter up there with the wind, trying to get those rescues done.
All right, Danielle, we want to check in with McCullough Medina right now, who is in our newsroom. And McCullough, we understand that there was a fire at the same exact building some years ago. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, about 6 years ago, 2013, there was a fire on the 11th floor of this building. Several people were injured as crews were trying to evacuate people up from the rooftop and also through the staircase of that building. I actually covered that fire as it was on the ground, as I was on the ground as it was happening about 6 years ago. The big concern when this fire happened was that there were no working fire alarms in different parts of the building, which caused a lot of people to stay in their apartments much later than they needed to, considering the firefight that was happening on the 11th floor. So that fire was happening much higher up. No reports back then of anybody trying to jump out of buildings, but there were a lot of people on the rooftops then, and of course a lot of evacuations through the stairwell when that fire first broke out. Again, this happened about 6 years ago. In 2013, the same building, 11th floor, concerns that fire alarms were not working properly. So it's unclear if any of that was rectified within the last 6 years, and hopefully it was, and hopefully more people were alerted and got out of this situation a lot faster than they did 6 years ago. Back
and
to
McCullough, we do have some information regarding that. There's a very good point that you brought up from our I-team, Phil Dressler, saying there was a construction permit pulled in January 2014, so just after the fire, to repair and replace the fire damaged units on the 10th and the 11th floor. So hopefully they had the fire alarms working at that point. If they were called in to pull those permits, hopefully that they're working in this particular case. But again, that was back in 2014, so that was 6 years ago. And of course, that's a question that we'll be asking firefighters. A news conference is expected to start at just about any moment here, where we'll be able to ask them some questions.
Yeah, we're waiting on that. So in the meantime, as we're waiting for that news conference and an update, we're seeing the live on the left picture, that box there. Those are firefighters, also some residents who ran up to the rooftop to save themselves. And so the challenge now that firefighters, you know, are facing is, do we get them down through the building, through the staircase? That's 25 stories that they would have to go down, what the risk is still of the fire reigniting, or do we hoist them up on the helicopter, which we have seen they have done already 3 of those live as we've been watching, which is risky. It's scary for the residents, but it's something that firefighters are walking them through, I'm sure, and know exactly what they're doing and what's best at that point.
And at 10 a.m., we just want to remind you that this was a fire that broke out just about an hour ago on the west side in Sawtelle on the 11,700 block of Wilshire. We have Captain Eric Scott of LA City Fire on the phone with us. Mr. Scott, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
All right. We appreciate you joining us right now. Can you just give us an update on what's going on? And have there been any injuries or fatalities in this particular case?
The injuries are still under, they're being tallied. No fatalities. I am still en route to the fire. I want to make that clear. There's extensive traffic throughout these areas. But as you'd mentioned, we've been battling this for about an hour and a half, and we now have assigned 325 firefighters to battle this 25-story high-rise, well-developed fire on the 6th floor.
Are you here? Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Is the fire completely out right now, and were you able to evacuate everybody, or are there people still trapped inside the building?
We do not have an official knockdown or full extinguishment at this point. We are working hard to do so. And yes, evacuation is a paramount concern to get those residents out. And as you were mentioning earlier, it's a challenge when you have the fires in the middle of the building, so to speak. So if it's 25 stories high and if it's burning along the 6th floor, those 5 and under are easy to get out of a stairwell separate from fire department personnel. We set up separate stairwells. We want to bring all of our personnel to the stairwells that have roof access, and we have a lot of gear to get up and down, hose lines and packs and equipment and extra air bottles. So we set up a separate stairwell for evacuation groups, and that's what we did early on to get those people out. Now, for those above those fires, if we can't safely get them out the stairwells, we will have them either shelter in place behind a closed door, and or we will begin to evacuate via helicopters on the roof, as you've seen.
Okay. Captain Scott, I lost you for 1 second. I did have a couple more questions for you. Do you know how many people live in the building? And can you tell us where this news conference is going to be? Because we know that a lot of people have questions about their loved ones, their family members who might live in this building, this high rise. Obviously, it would probably house a lot of people. But any idea of how many people lived here?
You know, I don't have those numbers for you. There's it's large residential, 25-story, multiple units per story. So there's a significant amount of people. Due to the time of day of week, a significant number are usually away to work, so that reduces it, say, being in the evening. But, you know, our primary concern when we get a fire like this is to have a very aggressive fire attack to set up good lobby operations where we can get situational awareness from the fire alarm panel. We have to set up extensive staging for all of our equipment and bottles and things that'll be 2 floors below the fire floor. So in this case, we have that set up on the 4th floor. And then we have to set up a base operation for all the incoming apparatus. When we have 325 firefighters responding, we need to have them appropriately there. And then so our main objective is, of course, to find the seat of the fire and to stop that horizontal spread. Fire burns, but smoke kills, so that's going to be moving throughout those floors, and we want to compartmentalize the smoke, pressurize the stairwells to get that smoke out and start to evacuate people, and that's exactly what we did.
Captain, I have 2 questions for you. Quickly, first, can I ask you about the news conference? We're told it was at 10 o'clock. Many people are wondering where their loved ones and friends, if they're okay. When can we get more information? What time is that news conference?
You know, I'm about 10 minutes away.
Okay.
They're establishing a location for that now. That'll be out on the alerts. If people follow at LAFD on Twitter, that location will be placed. Again, there's no fatalities. There's early reports of some potential injuries, certainly quite a few evacuations and a lot of sheltering in place. So we don't want people to have undue concern. We do certainly want people to stay away from this area. There is significant traffic congestion, and we do need room to work.
About how many people approximately do you estimate still need to be rescued from this building right now, whether it's helicopter or up and down the stairwell? Do you have an approximate number of the amount of people still inside that building?
No, I don't. But what we're going to do is we're going to shelter in place the majority of those individuals. So if it's 25 stories and the fire's on the 6th floor, really, you know, the 7th, 8th floor are concerned. But above that, we're going to have people stay behind their doors, close their doors. And there's also, good PA systems that we'll utilize in those buildings and tell people calmly where to go and what to do. We also drill regularly with these high rises, so they have a plan of attack when a fire breaks out, what to do. There's building codes where doors will automatically close to assist compartmentalizing flame and smoke. And really, when we get in on scene too, we're looking at that lobby panel. There's a computer screen that will show all 25 floors, all of the units. It'll give us indication if a fire sprinkler has activated, if a smoke alarm has gone off, if there's a heat detector that's gone off. So it gives us very rapid situational awareness. How
concerned are you? I mean, the flames, the video that we saw of the flames and the smoke looked so intense. How concerned are you about the structure of the building? I mean, I know you mentioned you're going to shelter some of them in place at the higher floors, but are you concerned about the structure and the safety of the building, of keeping everybody inside, or the people that you will stay inside?
At this point, we don't anticipate structural compromise, but that's something we look at. We do have our urban search and rescue specialists on scene that will evaluate that as well.
Okay, Mr. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We understand that a news conference is underway regarding this. Let's get to that right now.
Roughly at about 8:37 this morning, our firefighters witnessed what they saw was a fire on a balcony of the 6th floor. They immediately radioed that based on the fact that we had another incident right up the street on San Vicente. And as that was winding down, the alertness of our firefighters recognized that there was an additional incident taking place. We immediately filled out the assignment, made an aggressive attack. The Herculean effort of the members of the Los Angeles Fire Department was incredible. As mentioned, with heavy fire showing on the 6th floor, above ground incident, it takes a lot of coordination, and our resources did a great job. We finally achieved a knockdown in about 9:56 hours, and at this point in time, we are doing a floor-to-floor search, starting throughout the building to make sure that there was no one else that will need any assistance from us. At this time, we have 8 people that have been impacted by this. One was in critical condition. There's CPR taking place there. They have been transported to a local hospital. Also within that 7 is a 3-month-old, and we will get the status on that. For the most part, I know with the helicopters and the noise, basically what we did was have folks go to the roof where we were able to assist with evacuation measures. At this time, the Los Angeles Fire Department, along with the Los Angeles Police Department, being in unified command, our priorities right now are medical and the complete evacuation of this building. What we're doing for those who have been evacuated, we're in the process of getting a shelter established and currently addressing their needs. Once again, I can't say enough for the fact that what you see here is a unified front, the city family coming together to provide exemplary service. I'll take any questions. Commander, how many people were in? Well, actually, when you talk about that, our challenge was because it was taking us a minute to traverse those stairs and get up there based on where the fire was. So the wind at this point in time played minimal effect. As the fire chief mentioned, we went to a transitional attack. These are very large apartment buildings there. So based on that, the space, our folks in some cases had to breach walls to be able to get to the scene of the fire. Commander, how many people were forced to jump out? No one jumped out. We had 2 people that were contemplating jumping. We got on our public address system and let them know to stay there. We sent someone up the aerial ladder to address that. No one jumped. There are no fatalities at this incident.
Right there we are hearing from the fire department telling us that 8 people have been injured. 1 person is in critical condition. CPR was done at the scene and was taken to a hospital. That's the latest information that we're getting here from the news conference.
And among the injured, we understand, is a young child as well. So we'll keep you updated on the condition of these 8 people impacted by this. We do want to get back to Megan Reyes right now, live in News Chopper 4. Megan, we understand you have new information?
Yeah, in fact, we were just watching some of the rescues right now. Just moments ago, they rescued 2 dogs. So not only did we have multiple people on top of the roof, but in this fire helicopter, Firehawk 1, they had a couple of dogs in here. They want to get that down really quick here because they were concerned that the dogs, one of the dogs may essentially get loose. But the fire department did a great job. They had a Coast Guard basket, and one of the firefighters got in that basket, was holding tight onto those 2 small dogs. And this is the VA building, just literally across the street, just about less than a quarter mile away. That's where they're dropping off the patients who they're rescuing from that 25-story building. But right now, News Chopper 4 Alpha, we're going to continue with this shot because not only do they, fire departments are concerned about the life and property, most importantly, life of the people, but also their animals. Animals are definitely family, so they take that into consideration. So you're going to see a firefighter here momentarily come off with a couple of the dogs that were just rescued here moments ago. And I also believe there might be a person in this helicopter as well who was hoisted off the roof. Earlier, we saw Air Rescue 5, the LA County Sheriff's Department. They hoisted 3 individuals off right now. We have about 2 more on top of the roof. We'll get one of those rescues, but we just want to show you as they get these dogs safely on the ground. Tremendous job from LA City Fire as well as surrounding agencies and LA County Sheriffs.
Right, and as we watch this video of these animals and perhaps a person being offloaded, this helicopter, again, we heard from the firefighters that this was a Herculean effort. That's how they described it.
Right.
More than 330 firefighters responding to this incident, this high-rise fire. And as of right now, again, you can see the firefighter carrying what appears to be a dog off the helicopter there. And it looks like that dog's doing okay. But again, here in Southern California, obviously, people think of so highly, so fondly of their animals. They consider them to be family. Yeah. And we're seeing the rescue and reunification right here of the dog with its family there.
It's incredible. Reports we're getting from the public information officer as well that this building does not, I repeat, does not have sprinklers, and that it quickly spread from the 6th to the 7th floor. Of course, a lot of smoke damage that we saw there as well. Also, firefighters saying that rarely do they ever do these roof rescues. And we've seen several live right here on NBC4, but we are told that this fire, it has been knocked out. It was knocked out just before 10 o'clock, which is great news. And they say that the majority of everybody has been evacuated that was in that danger zone, and that the rest of the people are going to be taken to upper floors. And then we have these rescues that you're seeing live right now. We've seen several now up to the helicopter, because it's really difficult to get down 25 stories when you have the middle part, the 6th, 7th floor, maybe even more, completely damaged. It's
incredible television to watch right now. These rescue attempts are occurring. They're successful so far. Again, we have 8 people who have been injured, but we've seen numerous people being hoisted up into these rescue helicopters, and their lives are being saved in a very precarious and situation here. We do want to get to Angie Crouch, though, on the ground.
Before we go to Angie real quick, I just want to give you some information that we're just getting right now about some of the victims who were impacted by this. Again, 8 people impacted. 6 of them suffered smoke inhalation, which is very dangerous, very difficult to breathe. 2 of them were injured. One of them, one of the 8, is a 3-month-old baby.
Right.
3-month-old baby taken to the hospital. One of those people are in critical condition. CPR was performed. We are going to continue to follow those injured as well as we watch these rescues continue to happen.
Right, and now we want to get to Angie Crouch, who's on the ground, who's been talking with people who were in the neighborhood at the time. Angie, what's going on?
Yeah, during our last report, we interviewed Amir. He works nearby, and as we wrapped up our interview, he and some of his co-workers were taking some of the people who had escaped from the building over to their office to, take care of them, give them water, give them a little bit of comfort. Some of them were barefoot. We caught up with one of them. This is Puia. He lives on the 7th floor on the east side of the building, on the other side, and he was awakened this morning at 8:30. Puia, describe the first thing that you were aware of today.
Well, I just noticed there was a lot of smoke in the unit, and then I heard the alarm going off. They announced that this is not a drill. At first, I was a little bit skeptical about leaving the apartment, but then the smoke and the smell obviously was an indicator that it's not a drill. And so first thing I did, I just made sure all my roommates are getting out. I locked the door, and we went to the stairway. And there was just so much smoke there. A couple of people were passed out on the floor inside the stairway. We tried to check on them. They were okay, but it was just not a really good scene. We ran out. The fire was blazing out of the unit that was on fire, and there was a gentleman on the next to it, same unit, that was trying to get out, frantically holding on to the window so he wouldn't fall out. A couple of minutes in, the fire trucks came in and they pulled him off the window. He would have fallen off if they were like a second late.
And you mentioned that was a guy in his 20s, and the firefighters actually used a ladder to get to him.
The only way to get the fire was blazing. They couldn't have entered the unit any other way.
And you mentioned they were able to get him out safely.
They were. If they were a bit late, he might have not made it. He was gasping for air. He was almost passed out.
You mentioned that you went out into the hallway, no sprinklers, but you did hear an alarm, and then you tried to go down the stairwell. You mentioned that the stairwell was quite crowded with people who were trying to get out. How many people would you say were in the stairwell when you got out there?
20, 30 almost. They were just running downstairs, crying, panting. And some of them were just on every part that you would go, it's like a straight floor. They were just laying there because they were choking on smoke. They might have been from the same unit from the fire, but it was just not good.
You mentioned that you saw some people that appeared to have some burns?
Yeah.
Where were those?
They were downstairs. They had some they looked like they were red a little bit, but the burnings weren't that extensive.
That sounds pretty horrific, quite a harrowing escape here. The people that were on the landings there in the stairwell, were people trying to assist them? Were they carrying them? How were they getting out?
They had some people assisting them. We tried to assist them. They said that we're okay. And then they came downstairs. I noticed them exit the same way we came in.
Were the hallways completely filled with black smoke when you went out?
Completely.
So that was on the 7th floor, one floor above the fire.
The 6th floor was probably like completely blocked from the smoke, not even like uninhabitable.
Did you see any of the other rescues?
I saw two of them. Two of them were rushed off to the hospital. The same person who was falling out of the unit was taken to the hospital.
This has got to be a terrible morning for you and for all the people here in this building. All of your roommates made it out safely as well?
I made sure they all did. Two of them weren't home, but the other two were. We got them out.
So what do you guys do next? I know that Amir and his co-workers are kind of putting you guys up, giving you a place to stay while the firefighters continue to clear the building. What are your plans now?
I'm just going to make sure my girlfriend's okay. That's all that matters to me.
Puia, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's been a terrible morning for you. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Thank you. There you go. One more account from somebody inside that building. We're going to stay on scene here and we'll bring you some more interviews just as soon as we can.
Angie, one question. We just wanted to clarify. Was he rescued just going down the stairs or was he rescued by chopper?
This person that we're speaking with now, he got down the stairs himself. He was not rescued by the chopper.
Got it. We just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, he was able to get out on his own.
All right, we appreciate that. And I believe we want to go back to Megan Reyes and News Chopper 4 Alpha.
Yeah, that's right. Megan, we continue to watch these helicopters just rescue after rescue, trying to get some of these residents off the rooftop.
Yeah, Daniela, right now, this is LA County Sheriff Air Rescue 5. They also participate in high-risk rescues as well, and they did a tremendous job watching those deputies hoisting 3 people off the roof, and they said they're done. That's it. No more rescues. I believe they may have gotten everybody. Getting more information right now, hearing that they're going to be getting some LAPD officers on the roof to help with evacuations. Now, earlier we did hear fire department say all occupants are out of the building. However, they may still have to do room-to-room check just to double check and confirm that. Air Rescue 5 should be landing here shortly here at the VA. Right now, this is where they're dropping off the people who made their way to the roof on that 25-story building. Unbelievable. First time I've ever witnessed live of these type of rescues here on the high-rise building here. All agencies coming together. LA County Sheriffs. We have CHP down there assisting with the LA City Fire, most likely LA County Fire and surrounding agencies, but everybody working in coordination. And once we're done showing you this shot, we'll also show you Wilshire Boulevard, full of fire department and emergency response. First responders are inundating the scene. Wilshire Boulevard shut down as you would expect. Stay away from this area here, but you're going to see the tremendous job these men and women here from the LA County Sheriffs taking off these 3 individuals. Definitely a very scary ride being hoisted into a helicopter 25 feet or 25 stories already into the air, but these people have a story to tell to their friends and families right now.
Unforgettable,
yes, were telling us, Megan, that these type of rescues off rooftops are so rare that this must be the only way at this point to get these residents out of this building, because the other options were to go down the stairwell, which is several floors, 25 floors, and then you have the 6th, 7th floor, maybe even more, that's damaged where that fire started. But at this point, this is the only way that they're able to get them out right now, and the priority is to preserve their life.
Absolutely, preserve life. And you also saw moments ago from News Chopper 4 Alpha, they also hoisted 2 dogs, and we saw the reunification of one of the people who was already rescued. So they're doing a tremendous effort. They're making sure everybody gets off that roof safely. Right now they're probably getting some of the last of the firefighters here on the roof. These men and women just doing a tremendous job here. We don't see any more residents on top of the roof. It's just the firefighters right now. Again, unconfirmed reports are hearing they may be bringing in some LAPD officers to assist by dropping them off at the roof, and then they'll be working their way down and coordinating with LA City Fire. But a tremendous response. Let me show you down below Wilshire Boulevard. Essentially, it is just inundated with almost every single fire engine you would expect. LAPD on scene there as well. A lot of spectators, as long as they're staying out of the way, don't become a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. Just stay back, let emergency responders do their job. But another thing that really caught my attention earlier here as we continue to move News Chopper 4 Alpha. You're going to see all the paramedics standing by. They literally just call for a vast amount of paramedics. They're calling for BLS, ALS to really stand by in case that they need them. They want to be proactive and have all resources available, but that's really a good sign. You see these guys are just sitting here waiting to be called. They're not going to be used, so we're not hearing about any more injuries than what we've already reported right now. And here's another firefighter being lifted up right now into the Firehawk helicopter.
Just amazing. It's like it's something out of a movie, but this is real life. This is happening right now on live television. People being rescued from a high-rise fire onto choppers. We do understand now that there has been damage to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th floors of this building. So you had a bunch of people evacuating at some point. And my colleague Michael Brownlee is telling me that the fire chief, Ralph Terrazas, says these are extremely unconventional tactics to use these helicopters to make these types of rescues, but necessary, needed at this point. And at this point, it looks like the cause of this appears to be suspicious. So we'll continue to check into that to see what that means.
Right. We're told it started on the 6th floor in a unit and spread to the 7th. We also got from the news conference, we heard that at this point, the fire is completely out. So no longer a risk, they say, for that fire to spread. But of course, firefighters there keeping an eye on any hot spots or that it could reignite. But right now, firefighters, as you can see, are now being hoisted down, and they're going to go floor to floor and make sure that nobody is trapped, nobody is stuck, there aren't any more injuries. We heard the person that Angie Crouch was talking to said that several of the people that he saw had smoke inhalation. Yeah. He was a witness, and that's one of the things that
that's what usually kills people during the fires.
Exactly, is the smoke inhalation, because it's so difficult to breathe that you can faint from that, you can pass out, and then, you know, it's very hard to be rescued from that situation. But so we know that 8 people have been injured, 1 in critical condition. One of those injured is a 3-month-old baby that was taken to the hospital. As we just saw several people being rescued by helicopter, as you mentioned, so unconventional, not a common way to rescue people, but at this point you do what you have to do to rescue lives. Yeah,
it is an unreal scene playing out right now. On this Wednesday morning, again at 10:23, we have helicopters rescuing people from this high-rise building that caught fire around 9 o'clock this morning. Roughly 8:30 this morning, I should say, and we've seen numerous rescues from this roof of this high-rise building. This is on the 11,700 block of Wilshire, and again, the fire has been knocked down for the time being. It looked as if these rescue helicopters, and there were 4 of them out here at one point, they have taken the remaining evacuees and the firefighters and officers who responded to this scene and removed them from the roof. And right now, what you're taking a look at is the just this incredible display, this array of firefighting units and this force that is down on the ground here. Again, firefighters using the term Herculean in terms of their efforts to rescue and evacuate this building. And as of right now, we've learned that 8 people have been impacted in terms of the injuries, but there have been no confirmed fatalities as of now.
Right, over 300 firefighters out there. You have the sheriff's deputies out there also checking floor to floor if there's anybody else that's stuck or trapped. But this is a very busy, populated area. This is just off the 405 in between Wilshire and Santa Monica Boulevard, right behind the VA hospital. This building visible from the 405 freeway. But this area is closed off. And they do not want anybody to go to this area because it's just going to make the firefighters' job a lot more difficult. But what a scary situation here for those people that were trapped there.
You can see the water just spilling off here, and again, damage to multiple floors, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th floors here at the Barrington Apartments here in Sawtelle on the west side of LA. Again, to give you an idea of the location here, the landmarks, this is near the 405 in Santa Monica. The VA is nearby. The cemetery is nearby on the east side of the 405 there. So that gives you an idea of the idea of what's going on.
25 stories.
25 stories, and they're likely going to be out there for the rest of the day and tomorrow as well,
and
minimally.
I can assure you that many of these residents will not be allowed back to this building. They have to make sure the structure is safe and check it all out. Of course, you know, stay in touch. We're going to give you the latest information, but it's going to take a while before you are able to get back into this building. It sounds like we have our I-Team, NBC4 I-Team investigative reporter Eric Leonard on the phone right now with the very latest information. Eric, what do you know so far?
Hi there. So we've been looking back at some of the records associated with this building, and as we've been discussing on air this morning, there was a fire there in 2010, 2011, or I'm sorry, the 2013 timeframe, and there was damage to the 10th and 11th floors. We found some building permit information that showed that was being rebuilt the following year, but also a lawsuit that was filed by a number of tenants in the building who accused the building owner of failing to maintain proper fire safety equipment. In fact, they said when that fire broke out in 2013, smoke alarms failed to go off, and when some residents tried to evacuate to the roof of the building, they found that one exit to the roof where we saw people being rescued by helicopter today, they claim it was locked. Now, that lawsuit went on for several years in court. We're going to pull all the documents and find out how it was resolved. But the core issues there went to the exact thing we saw this morning, fire safety. Residents complaining that the building did not have fire sprinklers. We heard the LA City Fire Chief, Ralph Terrazas, address that with the reporters out at the scene a little while ago. They said there were no fire sprinklers in this building because they simply were not required when the building was constructed in 1961-1962 timeframe. Newer buildings certainly have a requirement for fire sprinklers. This one did not. The residents complained even after that 2013 fire that there was not a retrofit, that fire and sprinklers were not installed. As to the cause of the fire, fire investigators tell us it is too soon to go in any one direction. Everything is on the table, but they don't have anything significant to report yet that points that investigation one way or the other. Back to you.
Thank you, and you can see how intensely that fire was burning, that parts of that building are actually crumbling right now, and we do want to check in with Megan Reyes, live News Chopper 4. Megan.
Actually, Adrian, that brings up a very good point. I was going to bring this up and talk about it. That is why they evacuate this entire area. Look at this. We have falling debris here from this fire. A dangerous situation not only for residents or any people down below, but also for firefighters. We are giving you a really tight shot just to show you the significant damage here on this high-rise floor, on this high-rise building, rather. This is the 6th floor, we believe, where the fire broke out, and you can see above, one floor above, the furniture inside is all intact, but the windows are gone. Essentially, the windows just explode, and because of the tremendous heat right now. You can see the damage sustained. This is the south side of the building. Now, on the west side, or make that the east side of the building here, that's where we see a lot of the firefighter activity. That's where we had reports of people possibly having to jump earlier. You can see evidence of that. We've got that large airbag that was deployed in order to help with some of the safety of these people evacuating from off of these balconies. No doubt a very scary situation. We do have right now firefighters are inside. Earlier we saw water coming down from some of these balconies here. So again, not only do you have to be concerned about inside, but also down below. That's why they have this entire area here evacuated. You can see all the LA City Fire Department on scene right now, still attacking this fire, but fortunately it's been knocked down.
All right, Megan, we appreciate it. Thank you. It's Michael Brownlee now being joined by Michelle Reyes, and we are starting the NBC4 News at 11 o'clock early, continuing our coverage of this high-rise apartment fire in the Sawtelle neighborhood. LAFD just had a presser with the latest information.
Yeah, 8 people are hurt. That's what we know so far. 2 of them taken to the hospital, including a little baby, a 3-month-old. Firefighters had to rescue several people by the helicopter from the roof, as we saw live on TV. The fire is knocked down. That we can tell you. The crews are doing a floor-to-floor search for anyone who may still be on those floors or in that building.
Yeah, pretty intense situation that we have been covering here for you on NBC4. Again, we have double box here, the picture up in the upper left-hand corner there, a live shot from News Chopper 4 Alpha. Of course, the larger picture there, the scene earlier here today. We want to bring in Megan Reyes live on News Chopper 4 Alpha. And Megan, we've seen these rescues. We've seen this fire actually being extinguished by the LAFD.
Yeah, LAFD did a tremendous job responding to this high-rise building fire here that broke out a little after 8:30 this morning. Look at some of the extensive damage. This is the south side of the building. We have firefighters essentially throughout this entire building, and as you said, they're meticulously looking through floor by floor to see if there's any other residents. Now, earlier I did hear that the entire building had been evacuated, but they just want to make sure that everybody was safely taken out of this building, whether or not if anybody's still hiding inside. We have firefighters throughout all floors here. Earlier here, this is the roof where we saw the rescue from Air Rescue 5, the LA County Sheriff helicopter, as well as the LA City helicopter, the fire helicopter. Tremendous job rescuing those residents. No doubt a very scary situation, not only for the residents. There were 2 dogs. LA firefighters took the time to put those dogs in a Coast Guard basket, brought that up into one of the fire helicopters, and reunited those dogs with the owners not too far away. So as LA City firefighters just doing a tremendous job here, rescuing people. Unfortunately, 8 people, as we are reporting, did sustain injuries right now, but you can see this area still inundated. Stay off of Wilshire Boulevard. Very busy here. We are seeing the crowds build up, but you have LA police on scene to do some crowd control, but still a lot of firefighters here on scene. This is an active scene, and it will remain so until further notice.
And now that the fire's knocked down, really the big concern is those 8 people impacted, especially that one taken to the hospital, and that 3-month-old too. We're hoping to learn more about the smoke inhalation injuries or just injuries in general, and a lot of questions you can imagine by the people who live here regarding those sprinklers that were not installed even after fire in 2013.
Yeah, intense flames here as we look again both at a live shot and video shot earlier today. We want to bring in Angie Crouch, that's been on the ground there for us, speaking to folks who witnessed this whole thing unfold. Angie, what do you got?
That's right. We're talking now with Gavin Strauss. He lives on the 21st floor. He happened to be in the pool at the time of the fire. You can see he's still just wearing his towel and his swim trunks. Yeah, Gavin, describe what you saw this morning.
Okay, so I was swimming in the pool and I noticed some smoke past my face when I looked up, and I stopped and I looked up, and there was black smoke coming from the 6th or 7th floor. But it looked like maybe a kitchen fire. It wasn't a very big flame at the moment, but it still was a lot of black smoke, and I got scared, and so I immediately ran to the lobby to inform the lady at the front desk what was going on, because it looked like it had just started. And she said, I'm already calling the police, and there was a maintenance guy that was going into the elevator to go up to the 8th floor because that's where he thought it was coming from. So when we got up there, we started knocking on the door where we believed it was coming from, and the gentleman was actually asleep. So we went down to the 7th floor, and right when we went to the stairwell to the 7th floor, and we opened the door, it was just a wall of black smoke. You couldn't see anything. And this guy runs out, and he was completely covered in black char, and he was coughing, and he was like panicking, saying his friends are inside. And I looked, and I told him, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
My goodness, which floor was that?
That was the 7th floor, but I think the fire actually started on the 6th, and there was no alarms going off yet. So right when I saw that, I went up 2 floors because there's a stairwell on both sides of the building, and I crossed over to the other stairwell where the fire wasn't going on, and I started running up and knocking on people's doors because there was no alarms. There was no alarms, and the fire literally went from like a kitchen fire to a complete blaze covering the entire hallway with pitch black smoke.
And you were barefoot in a towel and swim trunks running around trying to help your neighbors.
I was. I heard a lady and her kids laughing in their apartment, and I was like, what's going on right now? And I started banging on the door, and I'm like, you guys, you have to get out. There's a serious fire going on right now. And I would say about 2 or 3 minutes after that, I went to my unit, and then the alarm started going off, and they started evacuating. And so we went down the stairs, and I'd say right when we hit, because I'm on the 21st floor, right when we hit about the 13th floor, the firemen were already coming up. There was like 20 of them. There was water everywhere. They had their hoses, and everyone was running down the stairs. And it was a bit of hysteria going on because you didn't know like what was happening, and a lot of people had no idea what was going on. There's just smoke coming up. You can barely breathe. You're covering your mouth. The dogs were freaking out, but the firefighters were so fast. They were so fast, and they did a really good job, I think. The other stairwell was even in a worse position because that's where the fire was happening. It was darkness, just pure darkness.
Gavin, I'm so glad you were able to get out of there and able to help some of your neighbors. Thank you for sharing your harrowing escape with us. All right, that's the latest from here, guys. We're going to send it back to you. We'll continue to look for more people who were inside that building and were able to make it to safety.
What an account, and we're glad he's okay there and he helped his neighbors. Now we want to check in with Patrick Healy, who's with Chief Terrazas for the very latest. Patrick.
Michelle, we're with Chief Armando Hogan, who runs the West Bureau for LA Fire Department. Chief, you're just telling us officially we do have a knockdown on this fire. We have 8 injuries. Do we know the severity
We had one individual that CPR was in progress and is being taken to a local hospital this time. And then the other concern we have is a 3-month-old. So we're still trying to determine the extent of that. I haven't gotten any updated information regarding that infant.
And the initial reports that there may have been people trying to exit the building from the higher floors, was that ever verified or put to rest?
That was pretty much put to rest. We had people that were on the balcony in the initial phases. What ended up happening, and I really appreciate our firefighters and their Herculean effort, they immediately got on their public address system, talked that individual, calmed them down, sent someone up to effect a rescue. So no one jumped. We did have people contemplating jumping, and we know of one for certain, but for the most part, our firefighters were able to get there and assist that individual.
Okay. The one for certain, but that person did not actually go over.
Did not jump. There were no jumpers at this incident.
Oh, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But you are still, or at least very recently, we're still doing rescues off the roof?
No, at this point in time, for the most part, that is it at its complete. Our firefighters are doing a floor-to-floor search. This is a 25-story building. So basically what we want to do is look at the needs, do a needs assessment of what the needs are for the folks that are still here, who we want to keep in the building, who we may need to leave. We're setting up a shelter because your Los Angeles Fire Department is going to take care of our customers before, during, and after any incident.
And then, Chief, if we looked up at the building here, this corner here on the 6th floor, it's pretty certain on that balcony area that's where this did begin?
We're still looking into that. I've got arson on scene. I don't want to speculate, but if you look at that, that's where the majority, or what appears to be the bulk of the fire. This is the Bravo side of the fire. We break it down up into quadrants, and based on that, I can't get a good look on the backside, or what we would call the Charlie side and then the Delta side. So based on that, that's where it appears to be, but our arson will give us a accurate assessment of that.
And then do we know, did the fire breaks inside the building deploy and stop the fire from moving in the building?
What our firefighters did, is a technique we call Transitional Attack. And what that consists of is our firefighters who are inside doing the interior attack, because the situation in there is untenable, we have them back out. Then we do an exterior attack where we knock it down, make that environment a little bit more tenable, and then send our interior attack back in to have a focus attack and knock that fire down. That's what we executed today, and that's what you see, the end result. And for the most part, we kept it to one floor. So a great job by our resources here on scene.
And do we know, does this building have interior fire breaks that automatically close during a fire on the 6th floor?
One of the challenges here does not have sprinklers and some of the things that we would expect.
Wait a minute. This building does not have sprinklers?
This building does not. So the other thing that we always do in this situation is we bring out our inspectors. We want to look at what the challenges were that we face, so that way we're doing a thorough assessment so we can look to see from lessons learned what we need to do moving forward.
And so no interior fire doors to close either?
None that I'm aware of at this point in time. I haven't talked to the resources that were inside.
And should this building have had fire sprinklers, or was it grandfathered in because it's so old?
Yeah, I've got to look at the year and so forth on that. Our inspectors are looking into that. But at this point in time, we know that they don't have sprinklers, and then we'll look into that to see what the circumstances are.
Chief, I know you got to move on to other things,
yes, sir.
But last question, what's on the agenda right now? What are the immediate priorities for LA Fire?
What we're doing, the immediate, is always medical and then the additional evacuation. As I mentioned earlier, we're setting up shelters, looking where we'll set that up. And right now we want to get our people there, educate them, message to them what they can anticipate moving forward. And then that way messaging to those who are traveling. We do apologize for the inconvenience, but for the most part, we'll try to get them a better thoroughfare that they can get through as they go about their way in this busy day.
But basically the emergency is over.
The emergency is over at this point in time, yes.
Okay. Chief Hogan, thank you so much for taking the time to brief us. So, oh my goodness, what a relief from the earlier reports we were receiving of this fire, that there were people on balconies, there were people who may have leaped off. So again, as we just got the latest from Armando Hogan, who is the Deputy Chief of the LA Fire Department, in charge of this entire operation. There are 8 injuries. There was 1 CPR case, but at this point it is looking like all of our 8 injuries may survive. Everybody is out of the building. And Clint, if you could, just tilt up again. You can see where it began on this corner of the building where there's the extreme fire damage. And the startling information from Chief Hogan is that this building does not have interior fire sprinklers, which have been required in new construction literally for decades in Los Angeles. And there is some question whether or not it has interior automatic fire doors, which will deploy and close during the event of a fire. That is not apparent whether or not this building had those. So obviously those will be key elements in the investigation. And right now, actually, Clint, as you look over to the right, you can also see that ladder truck with the big ladder that's going up to the 6th floor, so that they were able to do rescues from the ladder and also from the roof of the building. So that's the latest here from, we are on the east side of the building. We're actually standing in Barrington. This is where the incident command is. Patrick Healy, NBC4 News. Back to you.
Patrick, thank you so much for clearing up all of that. And as Patrick mentioned, was questioning about the sprinkler system. Those were not required at the time of the 1961 construction, but our I-team is looking into that right now and what could be done differently going forward.
And I guess the 4 words that I extracted here from Chief Armando Hogan was the emergency is over. So that is the good news. Again, we're taking a live shot here from News Chapter 4 Alpha. We also have Megan Reyes at the controls here. And Megan, we see those firefighters there on the balcony, and we believe this whole thing started right there on the 6th floor.
Yeah, this is the area where Patrick Healy was just shooting a couple of minutes ago. This is where the fire originally started here on the 6th floor. You can see firefighters are on scene right now inside that building now, assessing the situation. But you can also notice from this angle how quickly that fire spread. It started on the east side of the building, but you're looking at the south side of the building and how destructive it was. The intense heat of that fire not only blew out the windows on the 6th floor, the 5th floor below you can see issues, but anything above, look at those black charred windows, and then some of them essentially just blew out due to that the heat because of that fire. So firefighters are now assessing the situation. This is still far from over.
Several people will definitely be displaced there. Let's check in with Angie Crouch, who's had several interviews with witnesses and people who were able to escape, and now you have someone else to talk to. Angie?
That's right. It's a bit windy out here, so forgive us. We're going to try to get through this. This is Kiernan. He lives on the 22nd floor. This is a 25-story building, so he was almost near the top of this building. Robert, you mentioned that you actually were leaving the building for the morning when you saw the smoke. Describe what happened.
Yeah, right. So I came out of the building, and there were all these fire trucks just lined up right here. And I didn't really know what was going on because the fire's on the other side of the building when I came out. And when I tried to go back in, they just wouldn't let me up. So my dog is still back up there. And so right now we're just kind of waiting it out, seeing what's happening.
And you wanted to go back up to try to rescue your dog. And who stopped you from going back up? What were the conditions at that time?
Yeah, it was just immediately they were worried about, the elevators. Obviously, it's a very tall building, so they didn't want anybody using the elevators after they knew there was a fire. So it was just the building management that at that time stopped me, but very quickly, once the firefighters started to get control of everything, they were making the perimeter wider and wider. So now we're obviously not even allowed to go on the same side of the street as the building, but yeah, it's pretty terrible. Describe what was happening in the lobby when you tried to go back in. Were there people coming down at that time? Yeah, everyone was evacuating at that time. It seemed like everybody was coming out of the building. People were also trying to go back up to rescue other people that were in their own apartments. And it seems like, yeah, that was it. They were just, people were trying to get back up and they weren't able to. They were stopping everyone from going back up. The stairs are not really a great way to get up 22 floors in this building. So, yeah, the fire conditions are not great in this building. Robert Kiernan, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm glad you're okay, and hopefully you can get back up and make sure your dog's okay up there on the 22nd floor. I should mention that we were talking with a couple of young girls just a moment ago. They didn't want to go on camera, but they also had escaped. They cannot find their 19-year-old friend, a young man. These are students at UCLA. They're French. They say that this building has a lot of foreign students, Russian students, a lot of French students. Many of them do go to UCLA, and as I mentioned, these young girls came over here to the fire trucks. They wanted to try and see if they could find out some information about their friends. Troy, if you can pan over here, you can see we've got a line of fire trucks here across the street. This is on Wilshire, right in front of Barrington Plaza, and you can see a group of people over there. They're waiting and talking with firefighters to try to get more information about the people that were taken away to the hospital because they really don't know yet whether their friend made it out safely or whether or not they were among those that were injured. We're going to continue to stay here on the scene. We'll bring you more interviews just as soon as we can.
All right. Angie, great hustle out there. Earlier, Patrick Healy was with a different fire chief. Now he's with Fire Chief Ralph Terrazas to give us more information. Patrick.
Michelle, thank you so much. Chief Ralph Terrazas, LA Fire Department. Deputy Chief Hogan kind of gave us the nuts and bolts on the situation here. But big picture, why these high-rise fires are so dangerous, and what are the priorities for the fire department?
Well, this fire here, it's 25-story residential non-sprinkler high-rise. So that in itself tells you there's a lot of risk to life when you have a fire in this type of building. Sprinklers work. This particular era of high-rise, it wasn't mandatory to have sprinklers. What I'm so proud of is the sustained effort of our firefighters. We did our conventional interior attack, and we also hit it from the outside, which we call transitional attack. We knocked it down immediately when we hit it from the outside. Simultaneously, we were doing rooftop evacuations with our helicopters. We transported 15 people from the roof directly to the VA hospital. So that's just another example of the value of our helicopters, which also drop water in brush fires.
And how tough were those rescues with that wind gusting 30, 40 miles an hour?
Our pilots are the best in the world. They're amazing. It's very difficult to hold that helicopter steady with 40-mile-per-hour winds. And I was watching them in operation. We had a rotation set up, and they were all holding still, which makes it easier to load patients.
Is that pretty close to the threshold, though, of where they can operate and where they can hover and do rescues?
It's the pilot's call. We're never going to overrule the pilots. Is it safe to do it? If they tell us yes, do it. If they tell us no, we're going to figure out plan B.
Let me take you back to the no sprinklers in this 25-story building. Sprinklers in new construction, the high-rise ordinance goes, what, 3 or 4 decades back?
Yeah, I think the original one was in 1974. All new modern high-rises, residential high-rises, have sprinklers.
That was after the Arco Towers fire?
Yeah, I don't recall which fire.
Not to put you on the spot, but is this something the City Council needs to address? Is retrofitting our older high-rises?
It has been a topic in the past, and I'm sure it'll come back again. And the council, in general, is supportive. There's a lot of people on both sides of the issue.
Well, it costs money.
Exactly. And we support anything that will further public safety. So I support sprinklers.
And you were talking about the attack from the outside was immediately able to put out the fire. You had firefighters on the 6th floor in that thick smoke. What was that like for the firefighters?
Very difficult. Because the windows had burned out, they were on their stomachs crawling down the hallways, and the wind was coming in through the broken windows, pushing the fire and smoke against our firefighters. We had them go through multiple air bottles to have a sustained attack. And then the incident commander decided, let's try a transitional attack. Let's clear the 6th floor, and let's flow water from the end of our aerial. Because the fire was on the 6th floor, we were able to reach it. Normally, you don't put high-rise fires out from the outside, but it was a combination of the interior attack and the transitional exterior attack.
And if that fire had been a few more stories up, maybe the exterior attack would not have been as effective?
It would have been a bigger challenge. We'd have to go heavier streams, and then we'd be throwing water as far as up as we can. And our aerials go to the 8th floor, and then the reach of the hose, that would add more height. This building's 25 stories. We couldn't have got to the upper floors using that technique.
And now, forgive me, did I hear you say that there was also an airdrop that took place from the chopper above?
No, we didn't do any airdrops. They were solely dedicated to patient evacuations from the rooftops.
Is that something we could do, is fight this like a brush fire if it were on a very high level?
Well, we've never done that. We do have that capability when we have the leased Erickson air crane here from August to September, or August to January. They do have a stinger on the nose of their aircraft. We have trained with that. We've always contemplated if we had a high-rise fire and we had that, we would use it. But our Augustas do not have that capability.
We're talking to LA City Fire Chief Ralph Terrazas, and I know you got to go, but just a couple of more questions if you can.
Sure.
We're talking about the firefighters literally on their bellies, crawling through the smoke, breathing apparatus on their back, getting new tanks. Were they encountering any civilians at that point, or had all the rescues taken place by then?
I got no direct reports of them encountering civilians. Usually our protocol is to get to the fire floor, and hopefully before we get here, patients or occupants are directed to evacuate through the audio system. When we encounter them, if they're able if they're ambulatory, we guide them to the stairwell and send them down.
And have we been able to have any conversations yet with the early rescuees about the origins of this fire? What do we know about it?
We haven't had those conversations yet. We do have our arson investigators are on scene, and right now we're labeling this a suspicious fire, and we'll have more details to come on that.
Does suspicious include accidental, electrical, things like that, or does that imply that there was a human cause?
It infers there's a possibility of a human involvement in the start of the fire.
And are we seeing anything malicious yet, or?
It's too soon to tell. We don't know yet. We're in the very early phases of that. We do have a suspect in custody.
Can you tell us more about that suspect in custody?
I can't. That's all I know right now. I don't have any descriptions at all. We'll have more to come on that later.
And forgive me for one final last question. The earlier fire and the scaffolding 3 blocks from here, is there a connection between the two?
That's a question I had, and we're going to drill down and find out. There is that possibility, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Chief Terrazas, thank you for bringing us up today, especially with that information about the suspect in custody. And LAPD is the agency to see about that?
We're working with our arson investigators in partnership with LAPD.
Chief, right, thank you again. All right, so a lot of developments taking place here at the fire scene. The possible connection with that earlier fire, the suspect in custody. We're going to try to get more information on that and get back to you. For now, reporting live from Incident Command in Barrington, Patrick Healy, NBC4 News. Back to you.
Patrick, thank you so much. And of course, the chief there just reconfirming what he said at a press conference not too long ago, that this fire is in fact deemed suspicious, and in fact they have a suspect in custody right now.
And the chief giving kudos to his department, rightfully so, when he explains what they were doing, transporting 15 people from the rooftop while other firefighters were fighting this from the outside. You had 40-mile-per-hour winds and this non-sprinkler high-rise, and firefighters crawling on their stomach on the 6th floor looking for people. Just incredible work there by LA Fire, not to mention all the paramedics and ambulances that were already parked in place just in case this was for the worst case scenario.
Right, a lot of different layers to this fire, from how it started to the rescues involved. We want to take it back up to Megan Reyes live for us in News Chopper 4 Alpha. And Megan, we got some new information there from the chief, but the bottom line here is we have 8 people who are injured, CPR in progress, and a 3-month-old as one of the injured.
Yeah, and I want to show you where that fire, where we had 2 separate fires right next to the Channel 4 News van. This is the scaffolding fire that happened earlier this morning. And again, it's just somewhat of a coincidence how close the proximity of these fires were, because that'll just tilt up. And then that's where this fire broke out here shortly after 8:30 here on the 6th floor of this 25-story high-rise building. Very, very dangerous situation. LA City firefighters did a great job getting inside that building, extinguishing that fire, and you heard the efforts there from the fire chief talking about his men and women extinguishing this fire. Right now, the situation is under control. At least the fire has been extinguished. Investigation is underway. You heard they were calling arson investigators to come out to assist with this investigation right now.
So much, and as we heard from Patrick Healy yesterday, able to confirm that no one, according to the early reports, that there was people who were jumping from this burning building. No one had jumped. There was one who contemplated jumping, but again, now is the concern was with, of course, the 8 people who were taken to the hospital, especially that baby, and now a suspect has been arrested, and now the relocation of families and people and what happens now.
Yeah, Deputy Chief Armando Logan said that all the rescues are done. They are doing a complete floor-to-floor search. And they're doing a needs assessment to give the folks who live in this building exactly what they need to get through the next few days. They're setting up a shelter. Arson investigators are on scene, and they attacked this fire, what is known as a transitional attack. They first tried to attack it from inside. They decided to back off. Then comes the exterior attack, and as soon as things sort of calm down a bit, that's when they send those firefighters back inside.
But the visuals we saw today of the rescues were something we've never seen, really, and that were unusual. Those rescues from the helicopter and of animals and people, just incredible work here and knocking down that fire just about an hour ago.
Okay, a lot of activity here at this particular section of West Los Angeles. We want to bring in our traffic reporter from Today in LA, Alicia Del Valle, who's still on the clock here. Kind of give us an update on what streets and what intersections to avoid. Alicia.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to make sure that we let people know we have exact closures now. The Wilshire Boulevard is closed between Barrington and Granville, and we've also got a closure to a smaller street. We're talking about Stone Avenue. That's closed north of Texas from Wilshire Wilshire. Now, we can take Waze. We get real-time driving conditions with Waze, and you can see the impact of these closures. Again, the intersection remains closed because of the cleanup. If we can pull up Waze, I can show you. Maybe we don't have that. I wanted to make sure that we let you know side streets are impacted as well. Santa Monica showing very heavy traffic. Wilshire Boulevard right off the 405, super heavy traffic as well, westbound side. And look at these smaller streets impacted as well, because once again, Stone is closed north of Texas as well at Wilshire, and of course the main intersection. This is to get everything cleaned up, and as soon as everything is reopened, traffic should pick up accordingly. But for now, allow yourself some extra time and take other side streets, maybe Olympic or Pico. All right, sending it back to you.
Thank you so much. Stay away from the area. We already know how bad the 405 is, and then you add this in the mix. Look at all those units, firefighters and police there. You will be meeting these guys there and getting in the way of the investigation and the folks that really need to be there and relocate with their family members. So let's go check back in with Megan Reyes, who's in News Chopper 4 Alpha.
Michelle, this is Wilshire and Barrington, where Alicia Navalle was just telling us where the closure starts there on Wilshire Boulevard. And you can see why not only is it an active scene, but they have to accommodate all the emergency response personnel that are still responding to the scene and that are also here right now. We saw an abundance amount of ambulance and paramedics standing by in case they were needed. Fortunately, most of them were not needed, so that's good news. Let's show you the south side of the building. Not only firefighters were dealing with the fire, they also had to deal with the winds. You can see firefighters inside the 6th floor right now. Essentially, this is a crime scene. We're saying that because they're calling for arson investigators, so they're going to do everything they can to preserve the scene right now in order for investigators to come in and investigate exactly as to what possibly caused this fire. This is the east side of the building, 11,700 block of Wilshire Boulevard. This is the side where we understand people were on their balconies. You can see down below they have one of those large airbags. That was to accommodate people if they needed to jump. We did not see anything, but we don't have any confirmation whether or not that was used, but that's a resource firefighters wasted no time to put up. This is a 25-story building, very, very big building here on the west side of Los Angeles. And moments ago, we did see live from News Chopper 4 Alpha rescues from the top of the roof. First time I've ever seen covering that. Quite dramatic, seeing people being rescued, hoisted up into helicopters. Not only people, but LA City Firefighter. You know, you got to give these guys the credit. They also took the time to put animals in the basket, bringing them up in the helicopter and reuniting them with their owners. So LA City Fires did a great job, along with San Bernardino, or actually LA County Sheriff. They were on scene right now. And so, what's that, Larry? I'm listening to... my pilot is just relaying a little more information. You can see right now all the fire departments on scene here. Wilshire Boulevard here just inundated with all those paramedics. Again, we talk about the tremendous response. They call for a lot of resources. They want to get more resources on scene just in case if they are needed. Fortunately, most of them were not needed right now, but firefighters did a tremendous job here. Still, investigation is underway.
NBC4 News at 11 a.m. starts with breaking news.
And that breaking news right now at 11, people inside of this high-rise apartment building forced to make a desperate decision. Video shows tenants walking on the outside of that building to get away from all the flames. And we just learned from the fire chief that there is someone in custody who may have started this fire. Good morning, and thank you for being with us, everybody. I'm Michael Brownlee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Vyas. Let's get right out to NBC4's Angie Crouch, who lives near the high rise on Wilshire Boulevard in the Sawtelle neighborhood. Angie.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we've been able to speak with some of the people who escaped this fire this morning. Let me bring you down here. This is Dahlia, am I saying that right? Dahlia Kingsbury. She lives on the 16th floor with her roommate. Describe what happened this morning.
Yeah, so I woke up around 8:30, and not too long after that, around 8:40 or so, my roommate said she was getting messages from people across the street who live in buildings B and C that there was a fire and we needed to get out. So I poked my head out of our window on the opposite side of the building as the fire started on, and I saw some smoke, but there was no fire alarm or anything. So so I was confused about what to do, and about 5 minutes later or so, around 8:45, an alarm went off and said there's an emergency in the building, you need to evacuate immediately. So I grabbed my backpack and my purse and we ran out of the apartment into the stairwell. There was already so many people flooding the stairwell, firefighters. We ran down as quickly as we could. It was really hectic and scary. We got near the 8th floor and there was smoke just billowing out of a closed door. Very terrifying. A bunch of firefighters were yelling at us to move as quickly as possible, get out, and there was a child who slipped in front of me. People were kind of, panicked. I can't blame them. And then when we eventually got to the bottom floor, there were like 20 fire trucks, police, everyone was recording on their phone a guy getting rescued from the side of the building who was hanging on like Spider-Man, basically. And soon after that, I saw just black smoke coming out of the 6th floor, and everyone was standing there shocked at what was happening.
And this is your roommate right here.
Roommate,
this is Puia. Puia, you were able to escape here with your dog.
Yes,
describe what happened this morning.
So I was ready to take him for his walk, and then I started getting texts and calls from Building C, my friends. They're like, get out of the building. I'm like, why? What happened? And we didn't hear any fire alarms, so I didn't think it was a fire. I heard the fire trucks, but it was text messages that got us to leave the apartment. I opened my window and I saw a bunch of smoke coming our way on the 16th floor. We ran out, we ran towards the stairway, and it was extremely narrow. It was full of water. It was really hard for us to get out. It took us 10 minutes to get out of the building, actually. And then when I came down here, I saw it was extremely bad fire.
I know you guys were able to escape here with your doggies. I know they're a little bit, they're not quite sure what's happening. How are they doing now?
He did panic a little. He does usually panic. And also at the stairway, there were not many people to help us, evacuate. And there are no instructions, so we were all on our own pretty much. So everyone's like panicking, freaking out, but he did pretty well. I'm glad everyone was able to, evacuate from the building.
And this is another one of your neighbors here, Elisa Lopez. Let me just slide over to the side here. Elisa, you were telling me you guys also had pretty harrowing escape this morning. Describe what happened.
Yeah, so my husband was walking Simba, our dog, and when he opened the door, he saw some smoke, and we heard the alarm too. So he just came back. He was like, grab your passports, let's go. We took the stairs. Some people, they were already covered in ashes when we got there, and when we got downstairs, we saw this man hanging outside his window, trying to escape because I think his apartment, the fire started in the apartment right next to his, and from there we just stayed outside and waited to see the firefighters to get here. Like I'm glad that they caught firefighters. They were able to take the guy, so nothing happened to him. But now we're just waiting here and see when we can come back to. Yeah.
Let me also introduce you to Roberto Ruiz. He's a student at UCLA. He's from Spain. Yeah. You also escaped this morning. Which floor are you on?
I was on the 5th floor, and the fire, I believe, it broke in the 7th, so yeah, pretty close. But
describe what was the first thing you saw this morning?
The first thing I saw, I don't know. It was like I was surprised because the fire alarm started, but it was not all that. I get the feeling that it started blaring like a bit late, because when just as I stepped outside, there were already a lot of trucks. So I don't know.
So you didn't hear the alarms when the fire first began. You heard the alarm later, and that gave you the impression?
I get that feeling. Not saying that's what happened, but it's like there were a lot of fire trucks already, and from the moment it started, the alarm started. It was 1 minute tops since we were outside. I don't know. I was surprised. Maybe the fire department is super quick, or I don't know.
Do you have a roommate? We were told there's a lot of foreign students that go to UCLA and Santa Monica College that live here.
Well, because if we, all of these universities want to attract foreign students, but then you arrive in LA and nobody wants to rent you a place because you don't have credit score, or because you are a student, all that. So yeah, a lot of people well, we are forced to come to places like this.
And is this an Airbnb situation for you guys? No, you guys have a lease.
Yeah, we have a lease. We have a contract with a serious company. They take care of us really well. I don't know. It's nothing weird, nothing illegal. At least on our part. I cannot speak for every apartment.
Some of the other residents told us off camera that they do have a lot of Airbnb renters in this building, and that they sometimes have parties. Are you aware of any issues with that?
Well, I don't know about Airbnb because I don't speak to anyone. Like people are, maybe younger people. They sometimes do their parties.
Appreciate it. They're telling us we got to wrap up, so I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. All right, that's the latest from here. We're going to send it back to you guys.
Andrew there on the ground speaking to 4 witnesses, 4 people who live in that building, ranging from the 5th floor to the 8th floor, all with very different stories in terms of actually hearing an alarm, some who said they didn't.
Yeah, let's now go to NBC4's Patrick Healy, who is also near that high-rise. Patrick.
We are on the east side of the building in the middle of Barrington, which is the incident command area, Barrington, filled with fire trucks. And I want to show you something. The wind, you can see the palm trees over here, are still blowing. The wind coming out of the north, not nearly as strong now as it was earlier when we were seeing gusts of 30 to 40 miles an hour. And that was an enormous challenge for the firefighters, the air support responding to this building, doing rescues from the roof, trying to hover a helicopter in the strong wind. And the wind was also coming down alongside this building, and it was fueling this fire. Now, we have some video that was recorded very early on when the flames were very intense, and you can see there are individuals in this building on the balconies looking out, trying to figure, what do they do? Do they try to make their way to an interior stairwell? Do they stay where they are and shelter in place? It was a moment of terror that extended for many minutes this morning as residents of this 25-story building are trying to determine how they save their lives. Now, as it was, there were 8 injuries, 8 rescues. One of those was a CPR case, but we were briefed by the fire chief and the deputy chief just a short while ago. It is expected that all of those who were injured will recover. Now, we also got startling news from Fire Chief Ralph Terrazas. The suspicion that, that this origin of this fire, which appeared to have started on the 6th floor, was suspicious, and the fire chief told us about there has been an arrest of a suspect. Fire Chief Ralph Terrazas. And are we seeing anything malicious yet, or?
It's too soon to tell. We don't. We don't know yet. We're in the very early phases of that. We do have a suspect in custody.
Can you tell us more about that suspect in custody?
I can't. That's all I know right now. I don't have any descriptions at all. We'll have more to come on that later.
And there was also the other fire, the lesser fire in a high-rise scaffolding ignited about 2 hours before the fire here, only 3 blocks away. And the possibility of a connection between those 2 events is being explored by the fire department, but we do not have a definitive answer. Among the other revelations that we learned from the fire department is that this building does not have fire sprinklers, may not also have fire doors to block the spread of a fire. This has been a very controversial issue in the city of Los Angeles for decades. The high-rise ordinance goes back, we believe, to the 70s, requiring sprinklers in high-rise new construction. Recently, there's been statewide legislation requiring fire sprinklers in new single-story, single-family homes near fire areas. But according to the fire department, sprinklers were never retrofitted in this building, and, well, we'll leave it at that until we know more information. For now, reporting live from the east side of the Barrington Plaza. Let me add one more thing, if I could.
Okay.
Barrington Plaza, there are 2 towers in this building, in this apartment development. One is the one that burned that faces on Wilshire. That is Building A. There is a second building, Building B, that is to the south and fronts on Barrington. Building B is very similar in many ways to the other tower. Building B was not affected. All the damage was in Building A. For now, reporting live from From Brentwood, Patrick Healy, NBC4 News. Back to you.
All right, good clarification there. Thank you, Patrick. We're going to get back to that sprinkler issue. In fact, this is not the first time there was a fire at the Barrington Plaza Apartments. NBC4 investigative reporter Eric Leonard is live in our News Operations Center with that part of the story. Eric.
Yeah, this building was the scene of another dangerous fire in the upper floors back in October 2013. And as a result of that, a number of tenants filed a lawsuit and went public with their complaints that claimed the building wasn't safe. The lawsuit says that, among other allegations, that when the fire broke out at about 11:40 in the morning on October 18th, 2013, the fire began to spread and no fire alarms went off. On top of that, each of the units is equipped with an intercom speaker, so someone at a front desk or downstairs can alert everybody in the building to a problem there. They say no such information was given out, no warnings. And then some of the people who were part of this lawsuit complained in the case that by the time they were able to exit their units, again, after they say no alarms went off, the building was filled with thick, choking smoke, and several people complained of injuries. Now, according to the court documents that we were able to pull just in the last hour or so, it appears this lawsuit resolved in 2018, but strangely, a number of the documents associated with it were sealed by the court. So we're going to try to reach out to the attorneys and some of the tenants from the building who were involved back then to find out what the nature of that was. Why would anyone go to the trouble after the case had settled? People were paid damage claims. Why would they go back to court and then have some of those documents sealed? Also, the plaintiffs in this case back then, the tenants from 2013, complained also that there were no fire sprinklers installed in the building. We heard the fire department address that this morning. They say because of the age of the building, they simply weren't required, and that may have contributed to the spread of the fire today as well, according to what we heard from some of the city fire officials. But again, lawsuit filed after that case back in 2013, or after the fire in 2013, took several years in court to resolve, only wrapped up in 2018. Several of the plaintiffs, tenants, were paid out as a result of the lawsuit, but the details were kept under seal. We'll send it back to you.
Eric, thank you. We will continue to follow this story on air and online throughout the day.
All right, still ahead here at 11. Hundreds of Americans touched down in Southern California. We're live at the March Air Reserve Base with the latest from the CDC. We'll be right back.